Brenda for the next 2 hours here on Voice of Uganda Radio. So it is very early in the morning here in the United States of America. So I am thankful for my American audience that decides to get up and be a part of the show. For those of you in the evening and the afternoon part of your Sunday, thank you so much for taking the time out to be a part of the show today. I am really excited about what's going on with Purdue. Thank you so much. We continue to have members and people to join us weekly. So if you have not become a member of Purdue, it's faddu.org. Go out there and pledge your membership. Just remember that after you sign up for everything, it will send you a confirmation email back to your email address. So you'll need to go out there and click on that. And once you click on that, it will give you the congratulations panel that you have become a member of FADU. FADU is going to be a very, very important link to really helping and supporting the Ugandans in their struggle and their fight forward as we continue to be engaged in a lot of the topics and the information that's going on there in Uganda. So thank you for those of you who have become members. Also, thank you to those of you who have become listeners who listen weekly, who listen all the time, who have allowed our numbers to continue to grow here at Voice of Uganda Radio. You've shown us that this is a platform that you are interested in and that you participate in. And we thank you so much for just your membership to what we're trying to do here at Voice of Uganda Radio. And for all those of you who feel the need to participate and call in, we thank you as well, because everyone's opinion here at Voice of Uganda Radio matters. And for those of you who have just been a part of our listening program, and that's what you choose to do, well, we thank you so much for that as well. As you know, we have been talking about it here at Voice of Uganda Radio for at least a month or so, about trying to get to satellite radio. I'm happy to say that our numbers in Uganda are picking up as far as our listening base there in Uganda. We seem to be getting more and more Ugandans on board listening, so we're really thankful that they're finding a way to be a part of Voice of Uganda Radio. But we all know, those of us in the diaspora and those who are in Uganda as well, that we need to get to the mass people in Uganda. And we know that through satellite radio, we'll be able to do that. So next weekend, we are having a fundraiser. We're trying to raise funds. So I make the announcement on that because I want everyone to be aware of the fact that next weekend is just a fundraiser for moving us closer to getting to satellite radio. A lot of people talk about accountability, or what are we doing, or how are we moving forward, or how are we going to help the Ugandan people? Well, you know, we've done a great number of things, and this is just one of the other ways in which we're trying to reach out to the masses there in Uganda. So, and we're hoping that the fundraiser may put us there over the top so that we can start working on that and get there in Uganda a lot quicker than we hope. So please keep that in mind. And please stay tuned with us next week for that. We will have some of the programs. Our programs will go on as scheduled, but we will be doing a fundraiser, just trying to raise funds to get us closer to getting satellite into Uganda. I want to say well done to the Ugandan people. Those of you who do go out and visit FADU, we have an information page there. We have a writer on board here at fadu.org that does a lot of our publication out there. He's put a great article out there on power to the people. And it is a great piece, and I encourage you to go out there and read it, because what it did for me and the people that I tagged and shared it with is that it's showing that the Ugandan people are starting to make moves in the right direction. The Ugandan people are starting to stand up a little more for the injustices that are happening. And all it takes is little by little, one step at a time. And before you know it, the victory is there. And you start to make the change in your communities. You start to make the change in your surroundings where you're at and throughout all of Uganda. So I'm very excited about that. Very excited about that article. So please go out there to fadu.org, to our information page. There's a lot of very interesting articles out there, but that one article touched my heart tremendously for the power that the Ugandan people are starting to show and starting to take back. Um, the news on the Lord Mayor of Kampala City, what a great victory there. Uh, if for no other reason, how that shows the Ugandan people that, standing firm and trusting in the system to do what it's set aside to do for the Ugandan people. It does work, but you have to stand firm in what you believe, and we have to stand behind those who you have elected as leaders there in Uganda right now. So I'm very, very excited. I was happy to read that last night in the news where, he's still in his position and that the courts ruled in his favor. And I'm happy to see that because this is where it all starts. And it started in this country. We talked about that on the American Connection on Wednesday about the laws and justice and the justices that are put in place to make sure that these laws are abided by and are not just swept aside. Uh, one one individual, after reading that article, put a piece out there that said, "Wow, this must have been too hot that the president had to let it. The president had to drop it." And I like that comment because what it says to me is that it's very, very true. If the pressure is put there, if the people stand and rise to say, we're not going to tolerate this, this is injustice, this is not right. And this information got out of the international community. And when things get outside of Uganda into the national community, we're able to put our own pressure and our own weight on these things as well. I'd like to think that Voice Uganda Radio as well has a part to play in making sure that people stay informed, making sure that people know what's going on so that we can voice our opinions. We can read these articles, we can go out there and write a review as to how we feel about the injustices and things that are going on out there. So I'm very, very excited to see that. I'm happy for the Ugandan people this morning on this first day of the last month of the year being this victorious, and this shows that they are gaining the strength and the power to continue to move forward for the better good of what's going on there in Uganda. So I'm very thankful for that. We talked about last week on Freedom at Hand, and we talked about it on the American Connection, how FADU, the Federalist Alliance for Democracy and Development in Uganda, are wanting to get more and more on board with a lot of the human rights issues that were happening there in Uganda. And one of the cases that I said I wanted to follow very, very closely was the individual that was beaten into the coma and lost his position there in Uganda. Well, I was happy to read in the papers that the 5 officers that have been charged for that beating have all been suspended from their positions and are no longer on the police force. And of course, being here in the United States of America, we can read a lot of things that are happening there in the news and the way the government is taking control back for the people of Uganda. But we'll still continue to follow this story to make sure that these things continue to be what they print and what they tell us. Because one of the things that I have come to know from the way things are handled in Uganda, things can be handled and then all of a sudden a situation changes. Individuals are put back in positions or individuals are given another chance to come back under different terms. And I think the way that the government has handled this, I think the way that the court system has handled this has been beautiful. If these 5 officers were in the United States of America, if they were in Canada, if they were in the UK, Sweden, anywhere in the free world, this is the retribution. This is what would have happened under these circumstances. And I'm glad to see that the justice system is starting to work on behalf of the Ugandan people, because we can no longer stand aside and tolerate these type of things happening to the Ugandan people. We have to make our voices heard, and we have to continue to broadcast on our programs here on Voice Uganda Radio that, we have to watch these things and we have to file and we have to make sure that our government is aware of what's happening and what's taking place there in Uganda to the Ugandan people. I see that he was awarded 1.1 million shillings. Is probably not a whole lot of money for what he went through, but I'm glad to see that they did something to make him whole in that part. The interesting thing is I would still love to talk to this individual because the newspaper says that he was given his position back and was put back in that position. However, he was removed once again under disciplinary actions because he slapped a coworker. I find that so hard to believe, yet I know that people have anger management problems, but for the loyalty and for the gratitude that he was given, I find it very difficult to believe that now he has gotten there and, caused this type of a problem and now has been dismissed for disciplinary reasons. Because we know here in the United States of America, companies have been forced to take people back into positions when they have been wrongfully fired or things have happened in an unjust way. And when those people have gone back into those positions, they have found another reason or another avenue in order to be able to dismiss that person, taking the limelight off of the original reason why they left, but now they've been dismissed for another reason. That happens a lot here in the United States of America. And those cases still have to be investigated, even here, simply for the reason that justice still has to prevail. You cannot give a person back a position or put them back and make them whole because the government has said they have won this case. These men have been fired. Give this person their position back. And out of your own anger and frustration, you find another reason to dismiss or get rid of this individual. So out of curiosity, this will still be a case that we will follow to make sure that the Human Rights Commission there in Uganda continues to follow this as well and do what they should do on behalf of this Ugandan citizen. That's what we're all about here at Voice of Uganda Radio, is helping the people of Uganda to stand themselves, to stand strong and firm in justice standing for the Ugandan people, and for the Ugandan people continuing to be able to trust in the system that has been put in place for them so that they can continue to move forward like the rest of the world. We're not asking anything for the Ugandan people that the rest of the world doesn't ask for in the way the justice system works wherever we may be in, whatever country we may be in as well. It's their right according to the Constitution, and it's what we want to see happen for the Ugandan people and for the Ugandan citizens. So a lot of good things coming out of Uganda right now as far as seeing the system start to work a little more on behalf of the people. I have talked many times on all of my shows here on Voice of Uganda Radio that the power you give away will be given and used and abused against you. So we need to make sure that the power that we're trusted in is a power that is there to help protect and to continue to move the Ugandan people forward. So this weakens the regime, this weakens the sitting president that is there. It starts to allow him to know too that the Ugandan people have a voice. And even though their voices may be silenced, they're still making themselves heard in whatever way they can. Elected officials are just that. They're elected officials by the people, and the people have chosen the Lord Mayor in the city of Kampala, and that position he deserves to be in. So I'm really excited and very happy for the Ugandan people and everything that's going on there. The only thing we have to work on now is the EAC there, the East African Commission, is really putting forth petitions now on behalf of the media for freedom of speech and freedom of press. Here in Voice Uganda Radio, we have talked about that numerous times on all of the platforms here at Voice Uganda Radio, the importance of that. Freedom of speech and freedom of the press is important, and in no way should that be taken away from the citizens there in Uganda. So we will continue to watch them and continue to monitor how well they do, to see if they can get some of the ruling overturned there as well, so that they can continue to bring us the information that we need, not only for Voice Uganda Radio, for all of you who are in the diaspora. I mean, we need this information. It helps us to know what's going on and where we need to contribute and where we need to rise up for the Ugandan people. And it also makes the international community more and more aware of the atrocities and what's going on there in Uganda, so that we on the outside continue to fight and help the Ugandan people move forward as well. So very, very exciting. It's a very good day, not only here at Voice Uganda Radio, but for some of the victories that we're starting to see play out there in Uganda. So I'm very, very excited about that. This morning on Freedom at Hand, I think Anna Adek is still out of the country. She's not in Uganda right now, so she will not be a part of the program today. Whenever she is back in the country, she will continue to be a part of Freedom at Hand here at Voice Uganda Radio, but she will not be a part of the program today. And Dorothy, I'm sure, will be calling in later on this morning, so we'll look forward to hearing from her later on. Um, we talked a lot about iconic leaders here on Freedom at Hand and people who have moved forward to make a great difference in moving the United States of America forward, especially from a time of slavery. I share so much of those stories with the Ugandan people because a lot of where they're at right now is a lot of where African Americans were in the 1800s and coming forward here in the United States of America. I share these stories because I hope these stories continue to unite and bring us together more so than pull us apart. Because a lot of these stories that I share here on Freedom at Hand are about, they may be about individuals, but these individuals did not work on their own. These individuals did not become the powerful people that they became because of what they did. Yes, they may have had vision. Yes, they may have had the the drive and the strength and the courage to move forward in what they felt like needed to happen for all the people. But what they found was that when you stand for justice and you stand for what's right, others will stand with you. That is what we see happening right now in Uganda with uh, the Lord Mayor there of Kampala City being victorious in what happened to him, and his lawyer being vindicated also for what happened to him and his treatment of what took place. Sometimes standing behind great leaders and people who are trying to move us forward, it sends a message to those who are trying to separate and divide. And that message is that as long as you stand together, you're very, very strong. As long as you stand united, the power will be with you and more people will stand with you, because one of the things that you have to realize that many people have courage and they have great courage, but that courage becomes greater and more powerful when they realize that they're not alone, that there's others that feel the same way that they do, and there's others that have the same idea of moving a country forward or a people forward. um, from the beginning of the Civil War here during President Lincoln's presidency, uh, um, he urged that the Union forces were not fighting to end slavery, but to prevent the disintegration of the United States. What President Lincoln meant in that is that what divided us would eventually destroy us, because our differences, uh, um, even though we protected them and we stood firmly by them, um, those differences would destroy us. They would eventually destroy the United States of America, and we would not be as strong as we had hoped or wanted to be. Whenever you have a people in a country that are not treated equal within that country, the downfall of that country will happen because the country is weakened when that happens. Um, and this is the very same thing. And the reason I started out this way is because this is the very same thing that's happening there in Uganda. When you have a country as strong and as vibrant as Uganda, with so much to offer to the rest of the world, not just to Ugandans, but has so much to offer to the rest of the world, in which the rest of the world can get on board and help Uganda grow to its full potential, help Uganda grow to the true Uganda we know that it can be. When you have the type of diversities and the things that are happening there, it weakens the country. And it weakens the country not only for the leaders, but it weakens the country for the people. And when this happens, there has to be some sort of uniting to get the people back to where they need to be. Because we all know that we all, at any time something's not working, we have to put it aside and find out what is working. Whether it be through the courts, whether it be through standing up for our rights, whether it be through petitioning wherever we need to petition for our voices to be heard. We need to do that because it makes us strong. And this is what President Lincoln was saying when he talked about the Union forces and the reason for the Civil War and why it had to happen. It was not only about ending slavery, but the disintegration of the United States of America, what was happening to us as a people and what was happening to us as a whole. Hatred can only survive for so long, and then we have to do something about it. Because when hatred starts to filter out into other parts, it destroys everything, and we have to stand firmly against that. But for a lot of people, they did not want to hear that, and they did not want to believe that, because they felt like the only reason President Lincoln wanted, wanted the Civil War to happen was to free slaves, not to make the United States of America a better place. Here we are, all of these 200 years later, and we can see what he was talking about. Sometimes in the presence of anger, frustration, and leadership, people don't want to see the obvious of what's there. President Lincoln was like so many other iconic leaders that we've talked about here on Freedom at Hand. He saw a vision for what things could be. He saw a vision for the possibility of how we could move forward and how we could be stronger and how we could maintain our forces and become better than we were, not worse off, but better. And this is what's happening in Uganda now as well, as people start to see these victories play out in the media and in the papers. It starts to strengthen a group of people to say, maybe we can become the stronghold that all of the world knows that we can be. So I share that not to say to dismiss what happened as far as slavery, but I say it also to say that we became a stronger, much, much stronger nation because of that and what happened. So one of the things President Lincoln talked about and that he urged those that to know that blacks should be able to fight for their freedom. Um, the reason he felt that blacks should be able to fight for their freedom is because they needed all the forces that we could have. Now, we're talking about a time where some states were free in 1861, 62, 63. Some states were already free, and there were free blacks, there were free African Americans. But African Americans still had a place in society. And that place was not in the military forces, because in the military forces, it would give them the right to bear arms. It would also give them the right to stand shoulder to shoulder with whites to fight for the equality of all, not just for free and slaves, but for the white Americans as well. It also meant that blacks, African Americans, for the first time would be able to kill whites legally and not be punished for it. So all of these things opened up a lot of suspicion and opened up a lot of just frustration and arguing and bickering within the United States, those states that were united and those states that did start the practice of freeing slaves, and that some slaves were free, but not all slaves were free. And the reason for the Civil War was that all states would free the slaves, and slaves would be free to have the same equal rights and opportunities as all, which is in mind a lot of what the Ugandans are fighting for today. There cannot be any segregation within Uganda where one in a geographical map of Uganda that one section is favored more than another. It has to be united. So the same arguments that play out here on Voice Uganda Radio, the same arguments that the people inside the wall of Uganda are having, is the same conversations and arguments that we had here in the United States of America, because whites did not want blacks, even though the blacks were there to help them and to move them forward. They still did not feel that blacks had the rights to fight in these wars and be considered as almost equal as they were. So the conversation starts, and the conversation can paralyze us, or the conversation can move us forward. And this is what this program is going to be about today, Is the conversation paralyzing us, or is the conversation continuing to move us forward? Because a lot of what I'm talking about today, I want the Ugandans to be able to look at their situations and look where they're at, and how a lot of what the African Americans in 1861 through to 63 had to fight for is very, very similar for what they are fighting for today in Uganda. Um, so we know from what I just said that African Americans were not allowed to serve as soldiers in the Union Army at all until 1863. And this is when the laws changed so that these people were allowed to fight and be a part of the war that was happening there here in the United States of America. So with that being said, the topic of freedom at hand today is the 54th Regiment. I'm sorry. The 54th Regiment was a regiment that came out of Massachusetts. This was a regiment of nothing but African Americans. It was the first regiment of its kind, and it was the only one of its kind even after this one was put into place. The 54th Regiment was a group of men who knew that they were free, but that not all African Americans were free. So they were not fighting for the injustices of what had happened to them and what they had gone through. They were fighting for those injustices and that were happening to others who were not free. We can say the same thing if we put this in perspective of Uganda right now, with people fighting for their rights, with the press, the EAC fighting now for freedom of the press and freedom of the media and freedom of speech for those who are writing the information that's coming out of Uganda, to the Lord Mayor and what just happened with him, to the individual, the worker there that was beaten into a coma that has now seen some justice come about. Sometimes the fight that we have is not our own fight. It is the fight to liberate us forward. We get so stuck sometimes on how we're going to benefit from something, how something's going to work for us, what's in it for me, what's in it for my family. We're safe. Why should I worry about anybody else? I'm free. Why should I go and fight in a war so that others can be free? If the 54th Regiment did not come along to volunteer to be a part of the war, the victory we celebrate in the United States of America today would not have been possible. These individuals could have said, 1,007 men, they could have said, just like we talked about with Harriet Tubman, I'm free, I have my liberties, I can work and I can start to make a living for myself. Why should I go and fight in a battle for others? Because the 54th Regiment understood and they knew. Until they were all free, none of them were free. Because they would have still been battling a war of trying to get laws passed, equal rights for themselves, justices for themselves. They would have still been fighting for those things. What the 54th Regiment understood and knew was that once all the states were free, once all African Americans were free, and slavery was abolished, then and only then could they start to work on a new America, a new United States of America for us all. Because you have to understand, during the times of these wars, the Civil War, we were not the United States of America. There were some states that were united, but there were others that weren't. So there were some states that still believed that they should be able to have slaves, that they should still have run their states the way they wanted to. They didn't want to come under one government. And that whole fight in the Civil War was that we all had to stand together, and we had to stand together under one government that not only worked for some of the people, but it worked for all of the people. The same things are what is true today in Uganda. These are the fight of the Ugandan people. These are the reasons that those of us in the diaspora and those of us everywhere else need to get on board for the fight to help injustices and liberating Uganda. Because a lot of what the Ugandans understand today, and a lot of what they know, is that Uganda will work at its best when it works and it is united for all of the people of Uganda, not some of the people in Uganda. There should not be any favoritism anywhere in Uganda in any way. There should not be any corruption in Uganda either in any way. You have to understand and you have to know that in order for Uganda to move forward, it has to have the mentality of the 54th Regiment of Massachusetts. When these African American men volunteer to go and fight in a war to free slavery for all African Americans and to unite us so that we could all become one, because they understood and they knew that they would not be able to move forward either unless this happened. And of course, when they became a part of the military, there was no justice for them. Please don't think that this was easy for them. One of the things when I'm talking to those of you in the diaspora and those in Uganda, and even our American audience who are very, very aware of our history and how that history brought us to where we are today, none of these things were easy. Everyone that we've talked about on the show, from Gandhi to Nelson Mandela to Harriet Tubman to Nathaniel Turner, to Rosa Parks, to all of the leaders and the ones that we would continue to talk about, even from Dr. King. These people understood and knew that they could lose their lives. These people understood and knew that they were in for the fight of their lives and that this was not going to be easy. They knew that they stood alone and they had to bring people on board that thought the same way that they thought. So liberating ourselves, uniting ourselves, becoming one is never an easy thing to do, but it's one that has to be done. It has to be done. Those who think alike need to get together and convince those who don't. President Lincoln had a fight on his hand. Please don't think that the Congress was behind him 100% in all of the things that he did. He had to convince others. He had to bring people on board to help convince the others, and he had to stand firm regardless. Even when he stood face to face and he knew that they could vote him down at any point in time, he still had to stand firm in what he believed in order for everything to move forward. The 54th Regiment of Massachusetts, the black free men who decided to become a part of the military to fight for the freedom and justices for all African Americans, they understood and they knew this. And some of the things that happened with them was this: they were not treated the same as the white soldiers. They were not paid equal pay as the white soldiers. They were given hand-me-down uniforms for military soldiers who had died and the uniforms were shot up or had holes in them or whatever. They were not given the new and the warm things of the other soldiers. They were given old boots. Some of them had socks and some of them didn't have socks. So they got blisters on their feet, and they got, the hardship that they went through to fight equally with the other military men. There was no justice there, and they were not treated equally. But they knew that they still had to do what they had to do. We have to get out of the comfort of, I don't want to be inconvenienced. What is it? What are they going to do with my money? Where's my money going to be spent? I want accountability. I want to know what's going on. If these men felt this way, they would not have signed up and not done the heroic things that they did to change the face of the way the United States of America runs today. There would not have been a Rosa Parks. There would not have been a Dr. Martin Luther King. There would not have been a lot of things had it not been for the 54th Regiment that fought in the Civil War, an all-black regiment that fought for the rights for all blacks to be freed. So if they felt at any need that they were going to be treated that way so they weren't going to fight, what would have happened to us here in the United States of America? Ugandans in the diaspora, we cannot say, I'm inconvenienced. What is in this for me? Why should I care? You should care, because if Uganda is your birth country, if Uganda is your birthright, then these are the people that you go back to bring forward with you. One of the things that happened in the 54th Regiment, of these 1,007 men who went to fight in a war that they were not welcome to fight in, they fought for the equality of all people. It was not just enough that they were free. Those of you who are in the diaspora, should not be enough that you are out of the country and you are free. from the atrocities and all of the things that are happening in Uganda. You need to reach back and you need to pull forward the people of Uganda. The same way these type of things took place in the United States of America in the 1800s and 1863. We cannot look for how we are inconvenienced and what happens to us. We should only look to how can I help to bring another person forward? How can I help to be a part of the movement? How can I be a part of the change that we want to see happen in Uganda? I'm very, very thankful for those of you who are part of the program, who sit and listen and are part of the program each and every week, and that you make this a part of the platform of where you come to find and get some of the information that you need in order to be able to move forward in what you believe to be right for the Ugandan people. But is listening all that we are doing? Should we not put ourselves somewhere else to say, how can I contribute? How can I be a part? What can I do? Where can I be? How can I give? How can I support? Not thinking about what this takes from you and what you lose in the fight to help other Ugandans to be able to move forward. It's all about helping others to move forward. The selfishness of where you are and thinking that it's okay now that you are where you are leaves a lot of people with the doors closed, with no way of seeing hope for a promise of a new Uganda. So those of you who are in the diaspora today that are listening to this program, I encourage you to go out and Google the 54th Regiment and read up about the courage of these men and read up about how they put themselves in harm's way for others, how they gave selflessly. So now we go into talking about that they were not equally treated as far as the uniforms, as far as the pay, even as far as what they ate. They did not eat as well as the others because these were you have to understand they were fighting with whites that even though these were free men, they did not see them as being equal and they did not see them as being free. They still saw them as being slaves. And they felt like if they want to fight in this war, they cannot be treated on the same level that we're being treated. Yet the men accepted this and they continued. There was anger, there was hurt, there was frustration, there was anxieties, but they continued moving forward. They continued to take that anger, which is what I've told the Ugandan people so many times, and those of you who are in the diaspora that see the things that happen to the Ugandan people, channel that energy into positive energy to move yourselves forward. Because when you move forward, even though it may be one of us at a time that moves forward, we all move forward. There's no way that goodness can come upon one person without spreading on to other people. There's no way. And we have to remember that what we share and what we gain, it's contagious. It's contagious for others. And those others are who we need to move forward for. And we need to remember that's the reason. We're not doing it for ourselves. We're doing it for those that have been left behind. We're doing it for a country that we know can be great once again. Think about the Ugandan you grew up in when your parents could work as farmhands and pay your tuitions and you had a great life. It was because you lived in Uganda at a time that there was no corruption, that there was equality. Even though there have been regimes that have been hard for the Ugandan people, that have forced their hands, they still were able to make a life for their families and to move forward. In this government and the way things are going, this government is not doing anything to move the people of Uganda forward. What we're about is moving the people of Uganda forward. What we're about is bringing American companies into Uganda to set up shop, to help Ugandans to get jobs and to move them forward. Do you think that the youth that are so unemployed in Uganda want to be where they're at? Of course they don't want to be where they're at. If you went into Uganda right now and offered any of these people a job in anywhere, any form, they would be there on behalf of the Ugandan people. They would be there and they would work. They would want these jobs. We have a caller on board, so I'm going to go ahead and take this caller. Hey, caller, are you there?
Yes, good morning, Miss Brenda. I hope you can hear me well.
I can.
And
Good morning. How are you?
good, how are you? Thank you so much for your program and for those who wake up early whenever you might be to listen to this program. And I think you are doing such a great job to inform us and get ready to go liberate our country. The reason I've called today is that we have been given strength, especially by you, and most of all by the mayor of the Kampala City, Mr. Okwago. He has done unbelievably so well. He has faced all odds, and the man is determined to change the way we look at politics. The man has taught us the way we look at Museveni. The man has taught us to look fear into its eyes and he say, yes, we can. Sincerely, I thought that Museveni was so immortal, that Museveni was so powerful, because he has got all these guns, he has all the tanks, he has all the tear gas, he has the police, he has the military police, he has the army, he has Nakarima, he has, you name it. And I thought that the man was so invisible. Fellow Ugandans, especially those in Uganda, if I hope you have some listeners from Uganda, I would like to understand and listen to me very carefully. Museveni, after what has happened, after what the mayor has done to him, Museveni is a human being like you and me. He might use all the brutal force, but Museveni is weak on his knees. Museveni is scared of the power of the people. Let me tell you, when we talk about the power of the people or people's power, we do not mean only those who are elite. By that I mean those who are well off. People power means you, the common man on the street. People power means you, the border rider. People power means you, the taxi driver. People power means the common man. Forget about these elites. These elites, they are so involved in stealing money, doing everything they can. But it's you who can wake up one day and say enough is enough. And this is how it can be done very, very, very easily. When we come to air, when we come on the air and we ask people to contribute, when we ask to contribute, this is the cause we are trying to achieve. Now, if we have Kampala alone, residents of Kampala alone, I want you to understand, people in Uganda, especially people in Kampala, you have the power to change the government. That's why Museveni is so scared of people in the city. That's where all the tanks, that's where the battlefield is. You're not going to go to Kamuli and find the battle tanks. You're not going to go to Kayunga. You're not going to go to Kanoni. You're not going to go to any other small town. Museveni's power is concentrated in the central, in the city. And this has been so since colonial government, as Ms. Brenda said. Go and read the article on Fadu. Kampala has been the most resilient people in the city. And all the changes have been taking place in the city. And that's why when the government, any government we've had in Uganda, when they come, they have to take over the city because that's where the center of power is. And that's why Museveni is so afraid of the Lord Mayor. Now, for those who are young, I want to tell you, when there was a war, when Obote invaded the King's Palace in 1966, what happened was people, the residents of the city, they were so stubborn. They were so ready to liberate their country from Obote. And what Obote did was to rule. Kampala City was under emergency rule from 1966 to 1971 until he was deposed. Now, do not think that Museveni is the only leader who has a problem with Kampala, because Kampala can change the entire spectrum, the entire landscape of politics in Uganda, and Museveni knows it. Now, I sincerely appreciate people of Seka Market. They might look upon you, we might not pay attention to you, but believe me, Museveni has his eyes on you. people in the sector market, because they know, Museveni knows that that market can disrupt his government and can bring changes. So my fellow Ugandans, do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. Do what the mayor has done. One man, the Lord Mayor, look what has done. Everybody is talking about one man, the Lord Mayor, because power belongs to people. Now the Lord Mayor decided to exercise his power. He himself alone. He has decided to use his power to shake the government. Now, fellow Ugandans, this is one man only. And he has not even come to you and asked you for a penny. He has not even asked you to come and contribute. But look at what his contribution has done. Museveni is going back door and trying to convince him to go and negotiate with him. I sincerely hope that the Lord Mayor maintains his resolve to liberate the country. And I want you, my fellow friend, or my fellow countryman, my fellow Ugandan who listen to me, to join the Lord Mayor. Do not be afraid. If we stretch the government out, people in the city, we come out and demand our rights. People in Guru, we come out and demand our rights. People in Masaka, people in Imbalala, in every small city, we should all come and demand our rights. You don't have to go to the city to demand your rights. Let's stretch out Museveni. Let's see what he has got, other than having these airlines, these jet fighters and tanks. Yes, Museveni, let our people bring their power. Let's stretch Kayihura. You see Kayihura's chest will be broken. If we decide that enough is enough, Museveni is a coward, and he can only run behind Kayihura. He can only run behind Public Management Order Bill. And let me tell you, fellow Ugandans, this Public Management Order Bill is not new. Obote used it, and it was called a different name, I forgot. But those who can find out, Obote used the same thing. And I want to tell you, I want to understand that if Museveni never killed anyone, why does he put people in his government that were associated with the killer government? He has called other government swines, and one of them, my fellow Ugandans, is Nsaba Butolo. Nsaba Butolo was in the government of the killer that Museveni had publicly said the government was a killer. Museveni, if you're not a killer, why are you associated with people who are involved in previous governments that were killing people? You tell me your friend, and I'll tell you their behavior. We are tired. Enough is enough. Museveni, you've been in Uganda. You've been ruling us for so long. And it is time, my fellow Ugandans, we flex our muscles, we come together and say goodbye to Museveni. Let's make this year coming, the year 2014, the last year of Museveni's rule. Let's make it. Let's make our resolution. Let's come New Year's. We are going to stretch Kayihura. We are going to stretch Museveni. We are going to stretch Janet Museveni. We are going to stretch Muhoz. We want to see what you have got. Thank you so much, Ms. Brenda.
Thank you so much, caller. You are always welcome, and your compassion, I'm sure, is felt by other Ugandans as well. We have Dorothy that's going to come on board here in just a second, but one thing I wanted to say, just from what the caller was just talking about, and this is this. One man took back the power for the people, which shows that the people have the power. It's just that you have to stand, and you have to stand together. And like I said, if you stand together and if you stand united, you will see that you are far, far stronger than you think you are. So that is a very, very true statement that the caller just made there. Dorothy, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Miss Brenda. I'm fine. And how are you?
I'm very, very well. What do you think of this conversation so far that we've been having here?
Well, tell you what, Miss Brenda, at the beginning of this conversation and the topic you did choose, I didn't realize that I'm going to be this emotional
Yes.
as the program is, continuing. But I realized that it is a challenge.
Yes.
If somebody thought that these young men were wrong, as everybody has if people are going to Google out this 54th Regiment and read about it, because those who stood against it, they were just defeated. So it have this topic have touched me in a way I didn't even think at the beginning, but I'm quite emotional right now because these younger men, you've already explained this, but if I could ask myself, they were already free.
Yes, yes.
They were already free. Why would they do this? Another thing, they were so young. Some of them were about 16. Some of them had even probably to lie, to make sure they qualify to enlist. But why? They were already free. They were from the free state. Yes. And on the other side, they knew that they were volunteering. They knew that some people were so against it. Because, Ms. Brenda, I asked this question. Why would they go to fight the freedom of people? They were not considered Americans. They did have equal rights. Okay? However much they did, some people would never appreciate. I'm just thinking that some of the things that would have gotten in my head, okay?
Yes.
So, why? Why would I do this? But they knew what they were doing. And some of them, sure, they knew that we will never be back. We will not come back. But the young men went.
Yeah, and that's the part of it that's very emotional, isn't it? That you think that these young men who had not even started their lives knew that they could lose their lives, but they felt that for the justice of all, it had to be done. There was no other way.
Not that. They were welcomed for everybody, that all over a sudden America changed, except the president and those few who were really good men, activists who said, hey, this has to be done. But the majority, those who owned the slaves, those who thought that these black men, younger men, they were subhuman, every kind of oath was against them, but they did it. But what did they have in mind? For me, I think these younger men, just like any other lessons we've had from Miss Brenda, it was called sacrifice, volunteer, but most of all they had. When we talk about Harriet Tubman, when we talk about this younger man, Neto, when we talk about Rose, these younger men had what we call care and love for their people. They knew they were born in America and somehow they belonged and they had a right. Yeah. They had a talent that we Ugandans are lacking. I'm sorry. This was called love, care, and I give it all. I do not care what I'm going to get out of it. Because the reason Uganda is the way where it is right now, Miss Brenda, it is because people ask questions, what am I going to benefit out of this? We have no heart of nationalism. We have no love. We have no care. We are a little selfish. If you are okay, then it doesn't matter. Because I challenge anybody to call and say, that no, Dorothy, it is not true. If it is not so, why? Miss Brenda, why would somebody, you have an organization for 5, 8, 10 years, it is not going anywhere. You need some help. You need some unity from your fellow countrymen. But yes. Because you are up to something, you are chasing something, I need to get this out of it. Okay? Then you become selfish. My fathers, my elders, if you are somewhere listening, if somebody knows anybody, that is where we are selfish. These younger men knew that some of them are not going to come back. If something fruitful at all came out of it, they will not even be here to enjoy it. But some of them, they gave it all. Some gave some. Some came back wounded, but they did it.
Yeah, and can I say
Why?
this? You can Yeah, and let me say this, and you can comment on this, because
Yes.
John Andrew was the governor in Massachusetts at the time, and he got a lot of heat for what was going on because this was his state and this was happening in Massachusetts. And they're in
Yes.
Boston in the Commons. Let me say this. One of the things that these men had, the governor made sure that these men understood. So when we talk about selflessness and the love for country and the love for others, these men, although they were free, they understood and they knew that if they were captured by the enemy, they could be sold back into slave states, that they would totally lose their freedom. If they were captured, they would lose their freedom. Yet, if someone comes to you and gives you that kind of information on a war that you're getting ready to go out to fight in to help to strengthen your country, and yet they won't even come to get you. They're telling you before you ever go out that if you are captured out on the field and you are not dead, you will be sold back into states where slaves are not free. Yet these men went anyway. I mean, what do you have to say on that?
Miss Brenda, what can I say? You mean I have been in Massachusetts, I'm free, right? Now I'm going to fight a war where most people are not welcome. The rest of the nation is against it. And they put, I'm young, I have my life ahead of me, I'm not a slave anymore, I'm free. Now I'm willing to go to the war where I might die and don't come back. But then they put that condition on you. Hey, if you get captured, that's it.
And they
still went, Miss Brenda.
They still went, and some of them were even known that they could be hung, many different things. They could be tortured because a lot of these men still consider them to be slaves. And for an African American man to kill a white man, they don't even care that you were fighting in a war. That was more and more anger for them to come after these men. So these men were putting themselves, they were not just like in today's military where you're given a gun and someone has your back and you're protected by your fellow armymen. I mean, they were put in a war where everything was against them. Nothing was for them, but everything was against them. And I say this to those in the diaspora. What are we honestly giving up for the greater cause of those who are still in Uganda? I mean, even today, like the caller before you came on the air was saying, even when we ask for contributions because of satellite radio, or this is the direction that we're wanting to go in to bring this information out, to rally the people together, to let other Ugandans who are in other little areas within Uganda that don't even know what's going on, allow them to be able to hear the victory of what's happening, the victory of what just happened there in Kampala City, that they will not be taken by the government and that they will stand on the justice of the way that city was built. All of Ugandans need to know that. You have areas where people don't get papers, they don't get anything. They have a little short wave radio or they can hear the radio, and we need to get this information out to them. We're not asking people to go to a war here. We're just asking them to be a part of helping us to liberate and bring the Ugandan people together as a whole, where we all understand the injustices, yet we all understand the victories as well. And I know that you were a little emotional about the whole incident of this because, let me just say this to all of those listening today. When the Emancipation for Proclamation was signed into law by President Lincoln to free slaves, that was not all of it. There were a lot of, it took a long, long time before these laws were really taken in. And proclamation gave freedom, which still was not easy for most, under the president's order that still had to get to the Union line, because now you hear that you're free and that you're no longer a slave. But you were not free until you got to the Union lines. You had to get to the battle lines and cross over those lines into other states in order to have that freedom until it spread it out. So a gift was given to him, yet things still had to happen. And these men understood and knew this from the 54th Regiment. They understood and knew that they wanted to do everything possible to help these people get to the place that they needed to be in order to have that freedom, even if it cost them their own lives. And yet it did cost them their own lives, because if you think about most of the iconic heroes in the United States of America that fought for freedom and justice for the African American people, a lot of them lost their lives in doing so. That they never even look at Dr. Martin Luther King. All of the things he dreamed about for this country have come to pass, and he hasn't been here to enjoy them. Yet it was his dream for this country, and this country moved forward in that direction. I mean, talk about love for your people. Talk about love of a nation and wanting that nation to move forward, because he didn't just talk about the African Americans. He talked about the day that we would all sit down together, black men and white men at the same dinner tables, you know what I mean? And live our lives as one together. And that's what we're doing. He wasn't here to be a part of that, but it's his selflessness that caused it all to happen and caused it all to be. So when we talk about Dr. King and his dream that he had, and you put it in place with the 54th Regiment, that Dr. King would not even have been able to move the country forward on the platform that he did if it were not for these brave men that gave their lives for this country. What do you have to say about that, Dorothy? And
Miss Brenda, I'm here pulling my hair, because I mean, this is too good. But I think these young men, they had a gift. If they came on this earth, they were created for this, okay? Because now I'm wondering, Miss Brenda, why would the government, why would they have to put such a condition on them? Was it to discourage them? Was the white people feared that if these men did get hold of arms, yeah, the way they did, they could just go the other way? Or they just wanted to make sure that they go do what they are supposed to do to prove to the people, that to the white, that they were interested in what they were doing. Why would they put such a condition on them? Why would you say I'm free? Now I'm trying to go to fight for my country, my freedom, freedom for all, you know. I'm not even included. By this time, they had no assurance that they would be having equal freedom, even though they were free in the courts. But why would they put such conditions on them? To discourage them? But these people, these younger men anyway went. Why did they go? They went because they knew their sacrifice, their work, it would not fail. They would lose their lives, but it would not be in vain. They had seen something. I don't know if the other side, they were as smart. I don't know they were calculating things. I don't know that they really discouraged this because they wanted them to be more slaves, or they were just scared, or whatever reason. But for these younger men, they knew why. They knew.
Yeah.
And I just love this story so much, because they knew they were going to die. But something good, their sacrifice, something good would come out of it. Because I got a little, I was really terrified at the beginning when they went to this Fort, I don't remember the name. Yeah, Fort Wagner. And they lost about 45 men. Huh? Mm-hmm. And that was terrible. And for those who were against them, they said whatever they wanted, But these young men, they kept going. Yeah. They must have lost the battle, but they did terrible damage. But yes, guess what? Yeah, from that time on, these these other groups would be formed from different states. Nobody ever lost. Whenever they went, they did it, and it happened. Yes, and Miss Brenda, there's something so beautiful about this story. Just like the story of Rosa Parks, when these people stood up, and then the people from the other side crossed the line, okay? They crossed the line and they say, okay, you started it, we knew it was wrong, But we couldn't do it before you guys said anything. Okay, we won't take the buses either. The same way, these people, they had some activists. There are some people I can't forget. My Mama Brenda, I can't help it. This young officer, Robert Shaw, his father, who was a very good, wealthy man, an activist to free slaves, an activist to make sure that these young men was valuable to they were valuable to the country, they want to contribute a lot, and they supported them with all of their might. Because there were so terrible things were said, but there were some white people who were determined to lose it all. Because the father, when these young men were so killed, and the news came back, this Confederate whatever Congress, some people, they suggested let us bring Robert's body back home. And this officer, this colonel, would write to Robert's father to tell him, this Mr. Johnson, but we buried your son with his nigger friends. Yes. And this father said, in response, he wrote, and he said there is no more honor than that, to be buried with his men in honor and sacrifice.
In honor
and I'm satisfied with that, and I love it. Yes.
Yeah. It's true. It's true.
It is so beautiful. There was so much love here, okay, for the others, for those who would come again later. But for we Ugandans, what have we done? These white families, these people, they had money. But why were they fighting for these black boys? They had something they called unity and love and sacrifice. Until we Ugandans get up and we know that you have to sacrifice. In order to get something out of Uganda, you have to give something to Uganda first before you get anything out of it. Until we figure out that there is one chair, that there is to be one president, that you fail to reach out to other fellow men and groups, and we create one group after another, one group after another. Besides, we can't come together because you are calculating, what am I getting out of this? If I do ABCD, I'm going to have to be the president. If I have to do ABCD, I'm going to have the vice president. There is only one chair. On the other hand, the people of Uganda are suffering. There is something. I think God will do anything to show us our weaknesses. How could one man stand up to this dictator and do what he did? Not that I know those who voted for him, those who were behind him, those Ugandans, we do recognize them. But I'm talking one man in comparison to the Ugandan MP, the parliament, the opposition. I'm talking one man in comparison to the Ugandans in the diaspora. I'm not saying that all Ugandans in the diaspora, they're fed up of Museveni. No, but the majority, we are. But why could one man do such a thing the rest of us we have failed to do? If you look back and you think that the Ugandan people, they fear, there's nothing they can do. No, it's the other way around, Ms. Brenda. It is we people who have everything. We have the work, we have the freedom, we have the protection, we have the voice, we have a little money that we can afford to put together. Remember, we are not asking for life. Yes. As these 54 young men, 1,007 men did, no. But we are the majority, okay? My thinking is that we are a little selfish. We do not have the love of Uganda, that I almost feel like we are not even worth to be called Ugandans anymore, okay? And so we have ownership in that country because we have failed the people back home. Those people need some light. Those people need some guidance. Those people need some support. Those people, they don't need much, but they know. But you sit there and you fail to donate $2, $5, not because you don't have the $5, but you are really scared that Museveni will know that you donated $10. What kind of selfish is that? Because you are waiting to go back to Uganda during the Christmas and see your little house, your little project. Not that building your house is bad. No, it's not. But you're going to Uganda. We are not even sure that you come back. You get there. They beat you up, they torture you, they put you in a prison just because they know you are from America. We just like Americans, Ugandan Americans, you make so much noises, you are put us in trouble, and then you wake up and you say, oh, I'm going to call such and so a radio because I'm in trouble now. If we are not selfish, what are we? Because right now, Miss Brenda, I hate to say that Museveni is the problem of Uganda, because right now, with the Ugandan people, most especially in the diaspora, we are our own problem. Because the young men, they knew, they were born in the system, they had looked at it, and they had to figure out a way. How are we going to make sure that those children of ours, those brothers and sisters of ours who come in centuries later, they don't go through what we have gone through, because they were free. That's why I say, we're in the diaspora. What did we give to God? Because remember, not all of Uganda can come to America, or they can go to Europe. But if you sit back, for me, I think there was a very good reason why you got a chance. Yes, I know. You can ask, do you know how much I went through? Do you know how much I'm suffering? But you are not suffering to the extent of those people back home. Okay?
Yeah.
So I would like to think that there was a very good reason why you were given that opportunity to be out of Uganda so that you could do something in return. That's what I'm thinking, that those young men, Miss Brenda, they were free, but they knew that this freedom was given to them for a certain reason. That's why, that's why even though the president or the governor, Andrew explained to them that when you get captured, they will do ABCD. They didn't care because they knew this was a gift given to them. Yes. They will die. But whatever they were to get out of it, it was such of a great price.
Yeah.
Do it for somebody else. Yeah.
Yeah. And before we go on break here, we're getting ready to take a 5-minute break here at Voice Uganda Radio. You're listening to Miss Brenda and Dorothy here at Freedom at Hand. Let me leave you with this question before we go on break here. What if your reason for getting out of the country of Uganda and being wherever you are placed in the world was because you were one of these 54th Regiment men, and your purpose for getting out is for someday the greater good would be that you would be used for the purpose intended for your freedom, for your life outside of Uganda? Because if you think about it, those of you who are in the diaspora, you are free today. You have freedoms that you would not have if you were in Uganda. The men of the 54th Regiment were free. And they knew that, and they understood that. And for such a time as this, they knew that this was their calling. And I think we all are given and placed in places in the world because someday we are to make good of it. And what are you doing if you were called to be one of the 54th Regiment? You're listening to Miss Brenda. This is Freedom at Hand. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back.
Yeah. Hawangala isabasaji sanga yambugu hachimuli cha Uganda navagereka hagerekera Uganda swekenele telembo chop oli Uganda wali asubute twanise bako wechiti wacho ansanga yamama kanzu muyale akunde bunde oshiru New York oli Uganda wali asubute twanise bako wechiti wacho ansanga yamama kanzu muyale akunde bunde oshiru New York ayikaba kangande kuma vivekanje nande sabye chino chenku gambo kiss asoso kangande chiyaga denene yokulagira ko wechiti wacho na yatenzo mwana wa Uganda nkabe olwabasajja tatabe yaleta sense nze ndokale naye sabasa wechitibwa chuchu akasaga ngade mama kazumele akunde kunde ochiru New Yorker yaikabanga fukamide kumavivi chenkusaba obane Buganda sigale kadala gide takalya Buganda batwale mayira kenda sindise ukweyo basimbe kaja kuyitogende yonna jali mutese bweye wana yula kuja jola kosibe kaja gambe radio yobujaje sibivu embotuka bali bayagada Uli Muganda wali asubuke twanirize bako wechitibwa chuchu akasaga ngabya mama kanzu muyale akunde kunde oshiru New Yorker Uli Muganda wali asubuke twanirize bako wechitibwa chuchu akasaga ngabya mama kanzu muyale akunde kunde oshiru New Yorker ekati nono nsajja kwe yavuda chuke alwanyise Buganda Baganda basibe bana baguzo tuka walagidde bachuke abakozese dembe lya Buganda lingike kale mitunde gudda kojita fomu nenye mukama lwito kunyabo gubuchu elyefujo lyayinegeza ffe tukave kyefula nonya lya Buganda benyake Uli Muganda wali asubuke twanirize bafo wekitibwa chuchu akasaga ngabya amakanzu muyale akunde kunde oshiru New Yorker Uli Muganda wali asubuke twanirize bafo wekitibwa chuchu akasaga ngabya amakanzu muyale akunde kunde oshiru New Yorker
Thank you so much for staying tuned here with us on this Sunday for Freedom at Hand. I'm your host, Miss Brenda, and Dorothy's on board with us this morning. And we were talking the first half of the program about the 54th Regiment, a brave group of free soldiers, all black, 1,007, who went to fight for freedom for states that African Americans were not free in yet. One of the things I want to say before we get going on this is we talk a lot about uniting. And this is what happened with the 54th Regiment, because what happened is because they had just formed this group of soldiers in the military, none of them were able to be leaders. They would not put them in that position because those were positions that could only be held by the white soldiers. So of the 1,007 black military men, 34 other men were white soldiers that were with them were in leadership positions. What happened over the course of this fighting is that the white soldiers started to admire the black soldiers for their courage, for the courageousness that they had, for the will that they had to fight under the odds that they were fighting and the conditions, for knowing that they were not even free, or if they would even be free, or if they would even live, that they had that much love and compassion for their fellow men. So they, in turn, a lot of these men became very honorable to these black soldiers. They trusted these soldiers with their lives because they knew that these men were on a mission to free the United States of America and to bring and unite the United States of America, that these were the guys that you wanted to be fighting next to you, because these guys would give up their lives for them. And they understood this and they knew this. And so relationships were formed. And these were the letters that the white soldiers shared when they sent things back home to their family members. So what Dorothy was saying just before we went on break, when Colonel Shaw, his family got the letter that his son was buried in an unmarked grave with all of his black soldiers, they felt that that was an honor for him to be buried with such bravery. I think they did it out of spite, but we can see how things that are meant for our harm can turn into things for good. I think a lot of things that have happened to the Ugandan people under this regime, I think a lot of the torture houses, all the tear gas and the beating them in the street, the public management bill, trying to take Lord Mayor's position away, the beating of the guy who was in a coma, the girl, and all the rapes that we've heard about, the trafficking and the slavery thing where Ugandan girls are being sent into other countries. A lot of that, even though it's meant for people's harm, is getting out into the ears of people who can turn it into good for the people of Uganda, can turn it into good for the country. Because that's what this is all about. Like Dorothy was saying before we went on break, bad things happen to good people. But when that information gets in the right hands, what are we doing with that information? Here at Voice of Uganda Radio, we would like to think that we're giving a voice to the voiceless, because these stories are important to us and these stories must be heard. Just like here on Freedom at Hand, the stories that I share with you are stories of courage, of stories of strengthening, of stories of moving us forward, not taken away. And I don't ever want you to think that any of these things that people stood up for were easy. These were very, very difficult times. The white soldiers that were a part of the black regiment, they could lose their lives just because of hatred, because other white soldiers would kill them just because they felt like they loved black. So they were considered to be lovers of African Americans. And it was farthest thing from the truth. They were just there in a manner of keeping control and order. So a lot of things, and we go on in history to say that this was one of the greatest fighting regiments ever put together. They had so much courage, the war would not have even been won if it were not for them. They were not a small part of the war. They were a large part of the war. And the platform in which they stand on today in American history is one of bravery and one of courage. To say that, yes, these things might have been meant for their harm, being in the war, knowing that they may lose their lives and never come back and never taste the true freedom in which they were fighting for. But they understood and they knew that there was a generation behind them and that was important. That it was important for those people to be able to move forward as well. So, with that, Dorothy, I'm trying to get people to understand a little bit more here about, even though bad things are happening, we don't need to just stand by and allow these bad things to happen. Just because the Lord Mayor lost his position there in Uganda, he didn't stand aside and just allow this to happen. Even though his lawyer went forward to serve these papers and was treated in the manner he was treated in, he still knew that he had to go forward and do what he needed to do. And here today, we look back on a story that just happened. Dorothy, are you there?
Yes, Miss Brenda. I don't know. I don't know how to say this. I don't know if I can even say it good enough, unless to say that it was God. Okay, they were given grace and the gifts that they used so well. Okay, because that's why, as Ms. Brenda has already said, that when something, God wills it. If you read the Bible and you read the story of Joseph and his brothers, how he was sold by his brothers just because his dad loved him, he suffered. It wasn't easy for him. Yes. And these brothers of his, they did it out of mercy, jealousy, but God's intention was really very different. Okay? Because, Miss Brenda, I have been emotional in so many ways about this story. At the beginning, I was hit because of the fact that so many younger men died, okay, from that regiment. Yes. The first one, just as when that they, of course, they didn't have everything that they needed, okay? They were working in outrageous conditions. These white commanders, they also were working against all odds, okay? So, because so many people were against it, but God's intention was so different. These young men, that's why I say when they went into this, they knew that they were the ultimate sacrifice of this. So many of them died at the beginning, but it never happened again. Those new ones that formed, and it didn't happen. And this changed the people's mind, because as I'm troubled here, why would they do this? I think people started asking themselves, why? Why would we? Why would they die? You know? Why would they do it? So all of a sudden, most of America changed. They become heroes, and people learned great lessons. You know, there was something that these 34 officers, because the black boys were paid poorly, these officers went on strike. And they said that we will not get paid until they increase the salary of these young boys.
Yes.
They did it, and they succeeded. But Miss Brenda, where is our determination? We as Ugandans. Because whatever they had, these boys, I don't know. For me, was to be part of that group, the road mayor. That's what it is that he would have done, and I think that's what he's doing right now. Because I remember when they came up with the charges, and they charged him to be incompetent, which word didn't make no sense whatsoever.
Yes.
Because he's qualified for the job. It is the government who has been fighting him and made sure he couldn't even call a meeting. He couldn't even meet his own people in his city, where he's the road mayor. I don't know where his incompetence is or was. So we all know that they were playing games. But Lukwago's determination, and I think for the love of the country, and I think he has been through, this is pretty much his daily life. But for you, for us in the diaspora, what are we doing? What have we done? What are we doing to support what is going on? Because this is determination for the people who live at home. Because sometimes the people like Lukwago and the others, those who vote for him, people were beaten, tear gas. They sacrifice, sometimes they go, they don't know if they can come back, but we are here, we have all the protection, we have everything. But why is it that we don't have the love, we don't have the determination, we have failed to do the right thing? But all what I can say that it can be done, and we can do it. We need some little love, and we need to stop thinking that everything we have to gain out of it. And the fruits you have, let me assure you that every little contribution that people are asking here and there, it is so small compared to what we will get out of this country of ours. Okay? So.
Yeah, because you have to ask the question. Those that you say are building homes and have businesses and things like that at home, why would you want to just be able to sneak into the country every now and then, visit and sneak back out? I mean, your purpose should be to live there and thrive there and have your business be as successful as it would be here.
Why are we doing those things? Yeah, back there, I mean, you are here. You have everything you claim that you have. You are okay. Yeah? So why are you doing those things? Because it is your home. Because you love it. But why is it so hard, Miss Brenda, when it comes to do the work, that we have failed to do so? Because we cannot keep having one excuse after another, one excuse after another. People have done the impossible. That's why I love these lessons that you bring. Unless the Ugandans will fail to say that we didn't want to, we didn't care, but otherwise we had the means, the good Lord had provided everything for us. And his intention, whatever bad it is, his intention is to turn it into good. Because if Lukwago has managed, I'm not saying that Lukwago, this is a victory or this is done, because remember, Museveni is twisted, okay?
Yes.
And we have been listening about these land wrangles, okay? Like sometime back, what happened in Kayunga and Kasokso. Museveni is the one who wants that land to build the apartment buildings. He gave orders to go and evict people, okay? When people, they stand in their ground and he thinks that things are going to get out of control, he turns around and sends Kaikura, the same person who took tear gas and everything, to tell them that no, nobody is going to take you out of their land. Then the following, after a week, then he sends another group of men to beat, to tear gas and do the same. Yeah? Because how good is it that Mr. Museveni saw that the people of Kampala had stood their ground? They closed the Kampala State Council Authority, and the people picked up brooms and started sweeping. What do? They tear gas, they arrest them, but these are Ugandans. It is their city. They have a right to do so. Okay? So, when they realized that things are getting out of control, and actually people were becoming more determined to do what they had to do, he decided to tell the court what to do. Don't go ahead and do that. You know, we'll wait for him another time. Don't do that. You know, just the court ruled otherwise. Because Miss Brenda, what happened the first time the court ruled that Lukwago was wrong? So what made them to change their mind? Was it coincidence? No. So if the court ruled that Lukwago is still already mayor, that means Brenda right now, Lukwago cannot leave his house, except for that one time let him walk through the city with all of his followers. Remember that he okayed it. There was no commotion. There was no beating. The people were very peaceful. And they walked through the city without no violence at all. Because we all know that all along this violence, these people who start violence, they are planted through the crowds. They started the beating, they started the stoning, they started the fire, and then Museveni turns around and say, oh, you see, these people are hooligans. But it is the government. They have people in layer. They have soldiers in layer. They do all kind of things. We have this Chiboko squad who beats up people like nothing. But because Museveni okayed it, and I don't know this time what happened to the public management bill, because this man is like a chameleon. Yeah. He told the court to say Lukwago is still road mayor, but on the other hand, Lukwago cannot leave his house because his house is surrounded by the army. What good is that is? But for we in the diaspora, what are we doing? Because if we really stood up to the justice, to the love of the country, to our responsibilities, yes.
Yeah. Well, because at the end of the day, you have to still remember that you're still fighting for a cause. And
yes.
In fighting for a cause, you can never let your guard down to say, I've won or it's over. You have to continue to fight until true victory is won. And what is a true victory that everyone is looking for here is to have a fair election or have a fair change of hands of government, because under this government, nothing is working for the Ugandan people, nothing at all. And I believe in what you're saying is that even though this was a victory, how much of a victory was it? Because there's still a part of the way this is all playing out that the government still has its hand in it. I don't ever want the Ugandan people to get comfortable because we have victories that may come along the way. We have to continue to remember that what is the purpose for these victories, and we continue to move forward. Just like these men in the 54th Regiment, if they would have, they went in to fight in certain little wars before they got to the big one there, and they were very, very victorious. And they put them in harm's way time and time again, where soldiers were going in and just being killed and slaughtered. And they put the 54th Regiment in, and they go in there and they get the job done, and they come out. And they came out victorious a lot before they went before this biggest one, where they knew the majority of them would lose their lives. But one of the things they never forgot is what is the purpose in which we're fighting for. Just because we were victorious in this particular place that they sent us to fight, or this other particular place against these other militant men, they still had to know at the end of the day that they were still in a war, and that that's what they had to keep in mind. We have another call, Dorothy, coming in, so I'm going to go ahead and take this caller. Hi, caller, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, Brenda. How are you?
I'm very good. How are you this morning?
I'm actually it's afternoon this side.
Then good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you. Thank you for everything you are giving to us, and I'd like to welcome on board all our listeners and all those who are following the Voice of Uganda radio to keep on their effort in as far as fighting for freedom is concerned. Ms. Brenda, you raised a point that caught my attention. The regiment that you were talking about. Actually, when we were doing the American history here, we managed to do a little bit of it. But there is one thing I want to bring to your attention, Brenda, that the people of Uganda, and the majority being the youth, they are not focused. I don't know whether you have that.
Yes.
You are aware of that. We, the youth of Uganda, we were reduced to a point that we don't even know that even the taxpayers' money belongs to us. We were reduced to a point whereby even if to go to the hospital, even if to go to in a government institution, we dream that those people who are working there, that institution belongs to them. Unlike here in Europe or in America or where you know that a civil servant is there to serve you, but in Uganda, we really don't know that we have those rights. And these are the majority of the people that are our population. And these are the majority of the people that the government is doing nothing towards them. The government has not even drawn up a program to build up these youth. That's why here on the Voice of Uganda radio, there is a program for the youth.
Yes.
This program, I have never had any youth, even here in the diaspora, making a call towards this program. So you can see how this thing is following us, even here in the diaspora. But the gentlemen in this regiment, they knew their focal point. They knew their weakness. They knew what they were fighting for. Because, Miss Brenda, what I want to tell you that what is happening right now in Uganda, before we had what they call the Kabaka, I think my sister Dorothy knows that. People came up when Obote I ousted our king. People came up and said, we want our king, no matter what. People had to die because of their king. But how many people are ready to die for the mayor? People have been reduced to think that the mayor is the one who causes hooliganism. People have been reduced to think that the mayor is the one who is making the city ungovernable. Come on, guys. And these are the medium-class Ugandans. When you come to see the medium-class Ugandans, for them, they think that Uganda doesn't belong to them. If you see, as I had the caller before I left outside, I had the co-presenter of Gwanga Mujie when he was saying that the people of Kiseka Market, these people who are waking up, they don't know what is going to happen tomorrow. They are the ones who are resisting this to happen. They are the ones who have opened up, who have come up and said, no, this can't happen. But the middle class Ugandans, for them, they want to hold nice phones. They want to wear nice clothes. They want to wear nice perfumes. They want to go to clubs and I don't know how I can classify them. So, Brenda, this is going to be a very, 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 very difficult task for our youth to embark on. So the lads at the regiment in the army, they knew what they wanted. and they fought to death what they wanted. But the government of Uganda has reduced our people to being beggars, to being losers, to being each and everything that is abnormal in this society. I don't know whether you have something to add on.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but let me ask you this. Do you think it's because of so much that has happened in the country that the youth don't feel like they have the freedom to rise up and speak out as they would if they were in a country that had more freedoms afforded to them? I mean, how do you feel about that? Because if you think about the youth here if you think about the youth here in the United States of America, or the youth in Canada, or even the UK, there's so many freedoms of liberty and justice for them that they will speak out on anything because they know that there are laws and those laws protect and govern them. And in Uganda, I'm starting to get the feeling that maybe, like you were just saying at the beginning, the youth do not understand the law the way it pertains to them and the freedom that they do have to rise up and make their voices heard. Do you think they still live in a culture of fear, that they don't have the rights to do those things?
Yes, 100. Actually, I can say 200%. If you can see a professional, let me give you an example. If you can see a professional lawyer being dragged by a professional policeman,
yes,
then you, who is nothing, what will you say?
Yes.
What will you have? Because our people, they have come up to think that they don't have any protection. The world, the international community has deserted the people of Africa, more especially Uganda, because if the international community can see this happening, I don't think if this can happen in America, then Obama can allow this to happen. But why is it happening in America? And sorry, why is it happening in Uganda, whereby Obama has got an ambassador over there who feeds him every day on what is happening in East Africa? If something that concerns terrorism can happen in Uganda, you can hear the United States sending army or what, but when it comes to our freedom, I just want the United States to do something, because to the extent of to the extent whereby the government can drag our professional people, to the extent of the government using our police, our army to interrogate people. And we have embassies like United States, we have UK, we have Canada, we have the Scandinavians, we have France. All of them, they just keep quiet. Why? Is it because Museveni is serving their needs? But I'm sorry to bring out this, but if someone, let's say from Nakasero Mosque or Kiburi Mosque, can bring up something and then bring through Museveni lies to the international community that there is terrorism, you can see how will America react. Can we say that America doesn't like us? Can we come to that conclusion? Brenda, are you there?
Yes, I'm there. I was still listening to you, caller. Yes, I understand what you're saying, because I understand what you're saying. That there seems to be a rescue, and there seems to be a volume to move forward and help when it directly affects us, as if it's terrorism or something like that. But when it comes to the people, it's a little different. We got a call coming through. Let me go ahead and take this caller real quick, and I'm going to come back to you. Hi, caller. Are you there?
Yeah, Brenda, I am here. This is Mobile Musoke.
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm enjoying the conversation. I don't know whether the word enjoying is the right one to use.
But I understand.
It's fascinating anyway. And I thought maybe I better call in and make a brief contribution. concept of social change. Social change is essential for any society to function properly. And I hear the caller, Kalimagaz, is talking about the youths, whether they understand what is happening and whether they can participate fully. Part of that is the social change. They have to be taught how to look at the world in a different way. The lack of political freedom in Uganda contributes to people not understanding their rights and not understanding that they have the power to change the situation as it is. So this is part of our responsibility to let not only the youth but also the other members of segments of society to understand that they have rights, their constitutional rights, and they cannot enjoy those rights unless they participate and make sure that they are enforced. So the youth are part of the society, but they are a segment of society which has to be educated about their rights too. I always like to refer to history because history is the one that really gives you a sense of understanding that societies change. I'm sure you can remember what I'm going to imitate to say. There was an American who said segregation today, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever. And people clapped. They applauded him. This was George Wallace. At that time, it seemed as if segregation could go on forever. And yet he said this at the very time when social change was taking place very, very rapidly. And in fact, he himself became later on governor of Alabama, and he had to apologize to the black people whom he had abused and mistreated. So let us have hope that social change, society will change, but it will not change by itself. We are the ones who are going to change it. Again, another example of where social change plays a big role is the women's movement, the liberation movement. It coincided with the abolitionist movement because women saw their situation it was very analogous to those of slaves. They knew that they were deprived of certain rights, and they knew that the African Americans were slaves and deprived of rights. So I'm not surprised when you read American history that the abolitionist movement and the women's movement, these two movements were parallel to each other, and they are led by the same people who fought both for the end of slavery as well as for the liberation of the women. So, but this is, again, I'm pointing out to show that society will always change, but somebody has to play a role in that change, and that's our responsibility. That probably, but let me go back to the uniqueness of American system. The American system is so unique. Sometimes you see it as a contradiction. Sometimes you see it as something else. For example, slaves in the United States sometimes they had a right to sue their masters. It is inconceivable under the law that a slave could sue a master and win in the courts. But they did. Many slaves did win cases in the courts, and they were freed, and they became free that way through a court order, and so the American system is quite unique. The Constitution, which did not recognize the blacks at the time it was enacted, it became the foundation to for the rights of the African Americans and for women and for gays, the same constitution. And the diversity within American society is, is protected by the very constitution, and it is a unique document. And let me mention to illustrate the uniqueness of the American system. Frederick Douglass. This is a man who escaped from slavery and taught himself to read and became ambassador of the United States. it's
Yes.
very difficult to believe that. But this happened in America, in the U.S. And so much as the system we may criticize it, we may condemn this, at the same time we have to appreciate its strength and its vitality and its ability to change. And so let me also talk about my favorite president, who is Abraham Lincoln. Yesterday I quoted him in his proclamation. I've read that proclamation many, many times, and every time I read it, I admire Abraham Lincoln. He had the greatest political rhetoric you can imagine. When you read that statement in the proclamation, it was addressed to his supporters. It was addressed also to the people on the fence who were not participating in the war and who were not ready for abolition of slavery. It was also addressed to the enemies, his enemies, the people who killed him. But the same message was so well composed that he addressed all these people in one message, in a very, very brief message. So Abraham, we have to appreciate his existence. You are talking about the regiment from Massachusetts. It could not have fought without Lincoln's, contribution to the war situation. However, since there is no time, let me conclude by how does this translate into what is going on in Uganda. What is going on in Uganda is actually corruption, and we have to face it and fight it as corruption. Imagine Jennifer Musisi, the director of the authority. She earns 36 million shillings in a month, and that translates to $14,400 a month. Can you imagine a civil servant earning that money? And this is the salary of a civil servant in the city. So you can see this. The whole situation was corrupted. It was created on a corruption basis. And imagine Jennifer Musisi, if she loses that job, can she get another one to earn $14,400 a month? Who does that? Not even many people here in the United States earn that money. So this corruption has to be confronted head on. For example, the police violence you've talked about. I was surprised but pleased, though, that the police court or disciplinary committee, which I think it is a disciplinary committee, did dismiss the 4 police officers who inflicted pain and suffering on Suna, the guy whose fingers were cut off. Now, if that is true, then the police officers who beat the lawyer, Lukwago's lawyer, deserve exactly the same treatment. We are waiting to see whether that will happen.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, that's why I'm mentioning corruption, because it may not happen simply because they beat the lawyer for Lukwago, and yet they are in a very bad situation because they cannot reconcile or not dismissing these lawyers. I mean, the police who beat the lawyer when they have dismissed the police who beat Suna for the same crime. So, but in any case, now the Torture Act, those individuals, police officers, can be sued. So I'll stop there and let you continue the program. Thank you for allowing me these few minutes to make my contribution.
Oh, you're very welcome. And we're kind of rounding out. We only have a few minutes left here on the show. I'll let my two people on the phone just round out here and say a few words before we go. I do understand what he's saying about history, though. Sometimes things just take time, and maybe that's where we are with the youth in Uganda, that we need to continue on the path that we're on, knowing that it's going to probably take a little more time than we would like for it to take. Go ahead, caller, and finish out your conversation on that. We only have a couple of minutes, and then I need to say goodbye to Dorothy. So did the professor help you a little in understanding that portion of it?
Yes. I did understand what Professor
Are you there?
Educate the youth. Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I did understand what the professor was talking about. Whereby he emphasized on a program that can teach the youth, and I'm 100% behind him. But this has to go hand in hand with the government. As long as we have a corrupt and intolerant government in Uganda, this will be a thing of the past. Yes. If we can put all our tools together, more especially with the people of the diaspora, and we first clean ourselves, because even our organization are dirty as well. So we have to clean ourselves so that we can come up with something that will help our children in future. But otherwise, we will be talking, but nothing will never change.
Yeah.
That's the contribution I wanted to make.
Well, thank you so much, and try to be a part of the American Connection on Wednesday. I will talk about that a little more on some different things that we can do to get the youth kind of moving in the right direction. So please call in and be a part of that program on Wednesday. I'm going to go ahead and go to Dorothy because we only have about a minute and a half here. So Dorothy, go ahead. Do you want to say something closing out?
Miss Brenda, first of all, I would say that I had a lot to say, but Miss Sambiu said it all.
Yes.
So Mr. Kalimabezi has to remember that as he concluded also, I think he really did get it really well. It is our responsibility to be behind of these young men in Uganda. If they are not focused, we need to help focus, because the government has spent so much money to make sure people are brainwashed, to make sure they can't focus when they are hungry. They get focused. I mean, there are so many reasons why they can't focus. But this reason the government has been doing this deliberately. So it is our responsibility with people in the diaspora to help, support, teach, and lead them, and we need to be right behind them, for us to get rid of this government and take our nation ahead. That's all what we need: unity, determination. Because remember, those 54th Regiment men, they were focused, but they didn't have very many people, but they had the choice, they had the determination, they had the love. Okay, so.
Yeah,
we still need to get all
we'll
those
have
things.
To go because
yes.
Well, thank you so much, Dorothy, for your participation. Thank you to all the callers and for the conversation today. I think it went very, very well. We do have a show coming up behind me, so I need to get off of the air. You have been listening to Freedom at Hand with Miss Brenda here on Voice of Uganda Radio. Have a great Sunday.